Welcome to Listener Stories Volume 2. Today we have a friend of ours, Becca. Becca, say hi.
Hello.
Becca is very, very nervous to be on the microphone, but she is here to tell her story, her family's story, about some of the paranormal phenomenon that they experienced in the house that she grew up in till you were 12, right? 14, till she was 14. This shows how much I pay attention. So, Becca, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
So growing up, I lived in this house that was about 90 years old when we lived there. Well, basically, it all started before we moved in. This guy that lived in there beforehand actually died in the bathtub of the home. And then a couple years before we moved in, a little girl was thrown into the front yard because she was hit by a car.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so she was riding her bike down the road, and a car actually hit her, and she landed in the front yard, and she died on impact. I have no idea what her name is. I've tried looking for it, seeing if there was any history in newspapers and stuff, and because it was so far back, I couldn't find anything.
So her death happened before you guys moved in?
Yeah, so I was born in 1998, and they moved into the house in 1996, so I'm pretty sure this happened 1994. Apparently before I was born, my mom said that she kept pretty much to one end of the house and kind of stayed more towards the basement and a room in the basement.
It's always the creepy fucking basement.
Why? I do my best to avoid our basement. It's the fucking plague.
But my mom said that she stuck pretty much down there, before I was born. And then, after I was born, she started noticing, things happening, more throughout the house. The first thing that she said she noticed, outside of, the basement, or what they called the breezeway of the home. The first thing she noticed was I was, 2 weeks old, and I was laying in bed in between my parents on, a bouncer seat. And the bouncer just started, bouncing really hard, somebody would have to be forcibly doing this, and this was at 3 o'clock in the morning, so it obviously wasn't my parents. And then my mom woke up, sat up, my dad turned on the lights, and then their door was cracked open, the door slammed open, and she heard running and giggling down the hallway.
I just got the chills. That's kind of crazy.
She would do that often. I remember that happening a lot growing up though. I remember, when I know I'm, all over the place right now, but, when I was, 11, I was, in my bedroom reading a book, and these are, old house doors, so they were, they latch shut, and you almost had to pick them up to close them, and, I was, in my bed reading a book, and I heard a knock on the door, and I thought it was my brother, so I opened the door, and I was like, what the hell, and then nobody was there, so I closed the door, I laid back down in bed. And then it happened 2 more times. The final time I was pissed. I thought my brother was messing with me. I opened the door, and when I opened the door, I heard a scream and then a run down the hall.
That's fucking rude. She looks at you. Ah, shit! First of all, fuck you.
So when my parents bought the house, from what I understand, they bought this house from this German guy this German lady, and her husband was George. And he, before my parents moved in, died in the bathtub in the upstairs of the home. And my sister, for some reason, was, terrified of him, her whole life. There was, a front room of the upstairs, so this was, literally across the hall from, where he died. This bedroom, he pretty much stayed in all the time. And my sister was, maybe, 13, 14, and she would tell my dad that he couldn't talk to him or tell him to leave the house because he was the owner and he would get mad. And my dad actually said something to him like, just to kind of, like, I don't even know if he was, like, being a dick or what. But right after...
Way to just call your dad out.
Like, I don't know.
Being a dick to ghost, Dad?
Like, for real, I don't know why he would call out a ghost, but...
I do that shit all the time.
But he called out this ghost, and right after he called out the ghost, like, the night he, like, after he, like, was walking down the stairs, and he felt someone push him down the stairs, and he ended up breaking his foot.
Shit. That's
I
fucked
don't
up.
like that. That makes my feet hurt.
It'll make you think twice before calling him out next time.
Fuck that.
Well,
I'm
fun,
gonna throw
like-
myself down the stairs on accident. I'm too fucking clumsy.
Well, I mean, it's kind of his own fault. I mean, he's the one that tried to talk back to a ghost who obviously, like, didn't like him. And he knew that the ghost didn't like him. And even my older sister, when she was little, told him that this ghost didn't like him.
If my kid, like, fucking walked up to me and was like, Sally doesn't like you, I'd be like, we're fucking moving. I don't give a fucking shit about Sally. Peace.
I mean, but who calls out a ghost? Like, for real. Like, get out of my house. Like, of course it's gonna be like, no, fuck you.
Steven.
Ash. We, so the ghost in our house, we called him out at one point. Or actually, a couple times.
Did you get pushed down the stairs?
No, he stopped messing with us.
Actually, like, right after Sophia was born.
Kind of. Because there was the time that he turned on a couple of her toys in the playroom.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
And we basically we named him Chris for some reason.
I swear Jeff named him Chris.
Maybe. I don't know. But it came out at our housewarming party, and we've just called him Chris ever since, and he doesn't seem to mind it. But he turned on, this was just a couple months ago, he turned on a couple toys in Sophia's playroom, and,
He picked the most annoying ones.
well, naturally. So we finally were just like, Chris, stop, please. People are trying to sleep. And we haven't heard from him since. Like, there was no issue.
So the even weirder part about, like, this whole George situation is my mom actually thinks that she met him. She was outside, and she was, like, doing lawn work. And her and my dad were, like, putting plastic up on the windows or something. And this guy walked by, and he was singing Your Cheating Heart by Hank Williams. And then, her and, like, him and my dad were all talking. And for some reason, this guy just, like, did not like my dad, which kind of lines up with the story of, like, my dad getting pushed down the stairs by what my mom thinks is George.
So this was like a physical manifestation. Like, this wasn't like an apparition or like a black shadow or anything like that. This was like an actual physical, like, it looked like a human being.
Yes.
Manifestation.
So,
holy shit.
He would not, like, really talk to my dad. He, like, threatened to kick my dad's butt. And my mom, like, went to walk him home, but, like, he was walking aimlessly, like, he didn't know where he was going or, like, whatever. Or if he didn't have a place to go, I don't know. But my mom, like, remembers, like, walking him somewhere, and he didn't know where he was going. He was just, like, walking with her and singing to her. And, like, she said that the most memorable part of, like, her, like, being, like, with him and walking him to wherever is he had, like, a cane that he was walking with, and it, like, it was like a snake head, and it had, like, a gemstone on the eye. And I don't know if that means anything. I mean, it's never, like, made itself clear if that was, like, a meaning of something, but she just said that was the most memorable part, and she thinks that has something to do with actually meeting this ghost.
That's weird. So can we circle back for a minute?
Yeah.
So George died in the bathtub.
From what I understand, yeah.
Was it something specific, or was it just
I think he was just old.
Okay.
And that was another thing about that story is my mom said that he was a really, really old German guy that she met. Which lines up with them being Germans that they purchased the house from.
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, obviously I wasn't there. I don't know, I'm just hearing this from you, but from your story, I think she did meet George. It's so weird. I don't know. I've never heard of him, like, becoming like a physical manifestation, or at least I've never experienced it myself. The only thing we've ever seen are like black shadows and, white glowing, human shaped things. And so to see a physical manifestation, that'd freak my shit out. That would freak me out so bad.
Well, the even crazier thing is it was only my mom and my dad that like saw the manifestation, but my brother has like heard George speak several times. Like they were he was watching TV one night and he's watching Ghost Hunters, ironically enough, and like he was in the living room and like from that bedroom that my mom said that he was like always in. So like the TV said, if there's someone present, please knock 3 times. And from that bedroom that they always like saw him in, they heard 3 knocks on that door. And then my brother heard from the left of him like a man's voice saying, "Did you hear that?" And I don't know, that creeped me out, that he actually, like, heard a voice and a knocking at the same time. So I don't know if it was, like, George and the little girl working together to, like, creep my brother out or something.
The little girl's like, okay, watch this shit. And she just knocks on the wall, and then he's like, "Did you hear that?" God.
But no, that, like, even crazier than George, I feel like, I didn't witness a lot of George. I mean, like, I knew that, like, light bulbs would randomly get broken in the house, and I think that that's originally why my dad called out this ghost in the first place, is because he would be constantly breaking light bulbs, and my dad was finally like, if you keep breaking light bulbs, I'm going to make you pay rent.
I mean, I kind of can't blame him. I'd get sick of fucking buying new light bulbs too, though.
They're kind of expensive, to be honest. But no, like, I experienced more of the little girl than I did George. Just because I had, like, an imaginary friend that my mom, I don't even know how to, like, start this. Like, I had an imaginary friend growing up, and my mom swore that it was the little girl that died on the front yard. And, like, I literally, like, my mom had me explain, like, what she looked like, and she just thought that, like, what I described to her was the little girl that she saw that died in the front yard. But, like, I never felt, like, threatened or anything. But that's not the first time. I think that when I was a kid, I was just, like, really, like, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, like, I don't know, like, I saw a lot of things. Maybe sensitive is the word I'm looking for to, like, the paranormal. Just because it wasn't the first time that I had, like, something that I saw that nobody else saw. Like, I was at my uncle's house one time, and I probably had to have been, like, 9 years old. And, no, not even that old. Like, I was young, and my uncle did not like it when we played outside in his garden in the pumpkin patch. And by we, I meant me and this little ghost that obviously never existed, and I didn't find that out till recently. I was talking to my mom, and I was like, "Mom, do you remember when I got in this much trouble, or so much trouble at my uncle's house, and he screamed at me and that little boy for playing in his garden?" And my mom was like, "What little boy?" And I was like, "There was like a little boy that told me to go in the garden, and he told me that it would be funny to watch my uncle freak out." And my mom was like, there was nobody that lived even close to the house. Like, they lived out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by fields, and somehow I thought that it was likely that I was playing with a little boy. So, I don't know if it's, like, just me. I know. It's actually, like, wild. And I didn't find out about it until, like, last year. Like, I was literally just talking to my mom, and I'm like, "Yeah, so you remember that little boy?" And my mom's like, "What the fuck? No, what's wrong with you?" But yeah, I had, like, a same experience. Like, I grew up with this ghost that from what I understand, absolutely adored me my entire life. Because, like I said, she would, like, sit and bounce my bouncy seat while my mom was, like, cooking dinner and stuff, and she would giggle, and her giggles would go, like, throughout the house. And I guess my mom was okay with it after a while, because, I mean, obviously I was never harmed, but I still think it's crazy that she would let a ghost play with me.
I mean, I guess you wouldn't want to call the ghost out after after your dad called the other one out and got thrown down the fucking stairs either. So you're like, this is fine. This is fine. Really, it's saving me the hassle of having to bounce this kid and keep her content while I do other things. So this is okay.
Why a babysitter when you have a ghost to do it for you?
Exactly. Hey, you know what? Free labor. Don't gotta pay a babysitter? Heck yeah.
So, like I said in the beginning, that little girl, she, like, dwelled in the basement. Or I don't know if dwelled the right word, but she, like, lived in the basement. So the little girl lived in the basement before I was born. She just never left that area. And there was, like, a specific room that she stayed in. And my brother would, like, never go back into that room because he knew that she was there. Well, before it was my brother's room, it was my sister's room. And when she would go to bed at night, she could, like, feel her, like, getting into the bed. And she would actually see, like, the marks in the bed where somebody was, like, sitting or laying. And, but no, that's, like, it's just, like, it's crazy because, like, my sister just has so many memories of, like, her feeling, like, the bed, like, and this wasn't, like, a random occasion that this happened. Like, this was all the time that she would feel something, like, get into bed with her or sit on the bed, and she just never, like, freaked out because she never felt, like, threatened by anything that was in the house. So, I mean, like, I can't say that I was ever scared growing up in this house because I wasn't. Nothing was after me. The only thing that anything was after was my dad, and, I mean, he kind of deserved it. Shouldn't have called him out.
So, how long did you guys live in the house again? Till you were 14, right?
I lived there till I was 14, but from what I understand, my parents moved there 2 years before I was born.
Okay. So they're there about 16 years or so. That's crazy. I mean, they're brave as fuck because, like, a lot of people, if they started having stuff like that happen, especially if you're thrown down the stairs, like, a lot of people would just be like, yep, fuck this place. I'm selling it. Let's get out.
But the funny thing is my mom is a lot like Ashley, and she was just kind of like, you kind of deserved it. Like, it's not hurting me, so you're the only one that it bothers.
That is 100% what Ashley would say, too. She'd be like, well, you deserved it. You probably shouldn't have called him out, you stupid fuck. Like,
think twice about saying something to him next time.
Exactly.
But no, if my little kid ever came up to me and was like, the owner of the house doesn't want you speaking to him, I would be like, I'm gone.
Yeah, I guess I'm not speaking to the owner of the house then. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for telling your stories. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You are absolutely welcome. And we will talk to you guys on our next episode that comes out next Tuesday.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and rate us on Apple Podcast and follow us on Spotify. If you like listening to our podcast, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon.